Welcome to Off the Post. I'm Russ Cohen. We've got Anthony Mingione. And how are you?
I'm doing okay, Russ. Dealing with a little bit of a shin splint right now, which isn't the most pleasant thing in the world, but I'm getting over it.
Yeah, and this weather. I've got a little bit of a allergy thing going here. And we have Michael Jello. Mike, how are you?
It snowed in Buffalo yesterday.
News at 5.
How do you think I'm doing?
I mean, it's like your birthright. You can't whine about it. And we have special guest Julian McKenzie from The Athletic, The CJ Show, and many other things. Julian, how are you?
Doing really good. I have nothing to report about my life right now. Feels like every time I'm on the podcast, you guys seem to be living more interesting lives than I do.
It's almost playoff time. And so that's a big thing for you in Ottawa right now. And so I thought I'd talk about, and let's figure it would be a good time to revisit Shane Pinto and see, since everything that's happened to him, it seems like he's having a decent season, but what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think he's been playing decently so far. I know he's had some stretches where he'll go a couple of games without goals, but especially at this point in the year where the Senators, we know they're in the playoffs now. Everything they do to this point is basically setting themselves up for that postseason run. Everyone who's on a line seems to know what their role is. And for Pinto, who's been playing a lot of games with Ridley Gregg, they've had Michael Amadio to their right. So there was a brief cameo for Claude Giroux on that line too. Brady Tkachuk even got some time with them as well. Very clearly, that line is the shutdown line. And Shane Pinto has had some tough assignments throughout the season, notably when they went up against the Toronto Maple Leafs. He went toe-to-toe with Austin Matthews. That line is going to be counted on to shut down some of the opposition's best players. Not to say the other guys can't get that assignment, but Shane Pinto, for sure, defensively, he's going to get that opportunity entering the postseason. And I think the fact that he's been able to settle into that and he's shown that he could play well at both ends of the ice, that's a player that Travis Green has certainly relied upon and leaned on a lot at different points this year. I think in totality, that makes for a pretty good year for him. Again, the production, maybe you want it to be a little bit better, but I think on the defensive side, you can't really complain too much.
Julian, you were in Buffalo a couple weeks after the rather momentous Dylan Cousins, Josh Norris deal. We've only seen Josh Norris 3 games, and then now he's basically disappeared, which is not unusual for Josh Norris. Dylan Cousins at that point had, I believe, scored 6 points in 7 games. He was playing, at least contributing well offensively. I look now, 17 games, 3 goals, 7 assists. So it seems as if he is settled into sort of that area where a lot of people in Buffalo were, where we don't exactly know what he is. What has been your impression of Dylan Cousins through 17 games as a Senator?
I think it's fair that these last few games, his production, his output has slowed down a little bit. I think the initial shock / adrenaline that came with moving on from one city to another, being upset about leaving Buffalo, but also embracing the challenge and the opportunity to play for a team that at the time was on the verge of making the playoffs. I think that played a role into why he thrived. Also, the fact that he has ties to Drake Batherson from their time together at the World Championship. Thomas Chabot was also on that team, very familiar with a couple guys on Hockey Canada. I think Nolan Baumgartner was assistant on the Sens. He was a coach somewhere on one of those World Championship teams. Ridley Gregg, he goes back with him too. There's a lot of familiarity that helped out Dylan Cousins getting himself situated, not just on the ice, but off the ice. And I think that played a role into why he saw that success out the gate. But I think even if the last few games he hasn't produced maybe as much as some people would like, I think the fact that he still has that chemistry with a Drake Batherson and David Perron has been able to work really well playing on the left wing of that line. I mean, unless Travis Green wants to make a drastic change ahead of the playoffs, I think I would think he feels pretty confident this time right now in the second line that they have. I mean, yeah, maybe only a handful of points in 17-something games, but that line in totality, particularly through the month of March when they were put together, they were producing. They were putting up goals. They were working through dirty areas. Dylan Cousins, what I find most impressive with him is the body, the frame allows him to win so many battles and work down low. And even if he's not like the fastest skater, or it's not the most like amazing skater, just for his frame and size, he has enough ability to weave around in the offensive zone if he needs to, and is able to make plays work. Like, I think for the Sens right now, the fact that they have a player in Dylan Cousins, a right shot center who could fit on that second line, and he still has to tap into his ceiling, I still think for this team, they could feel really happy about the trade they made.
Julie, I wanted to ask you, and obviously I think for a lot of Philadelphia fans that they are going to have some kind of a rooting interest going into the playoffs. It's going to be seeing how Claude Giroux does. In your estimation, in terms of, I know Giroux's obviously not the same player he was when he was in Philadelphia, but what impact do you think he has had on the Senators in terms of helping, in terms of especially it maybe impact with younger players on the team and helping them get to this point where they're actually where they're a playoff team now?
Oh, yeah. The younger guys in that room, they respect and admire Claude Giroux, or G, as they call him. I'm sure that nickname probably was a thing in Philly for sure. But like,
absolutely,
you could tell there's a tremendous amount of respect for him and what he's endured in his career and all the longevity he's been able to play. And the fact that he's been able to still get some production while playing, particularly on the top line with Tim Stützle and Brady Tkachuk when they've been put together. And they still keep him on that top line with Fabian Zetterlund playing to the left or sometimes the right. Like, I think that's really big on a guy like Claude Giroux, who is only 37 years old, but has shown that there's still something in the tank for him. And it's a genuine debate about whether or not he should stay at the end of this season. I think some people would, in different situations, would look and say, you know what, he's a little older. Maybe you pass on him and you give another opportunity to someone else. You pour that money into somebody else. But Claude Giroux's at a point in his career where, you know, he gets to be at least close enough to home as an Ontario guy.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at some contract comparables. I know I did that a couple weeks ago. Maybe he gets himself a deal where he makes less than the AAV he's making now, but maybe it's something closer to what David Perron is making now, $4 million annually over the next 2 seasons between this year and next one.
Hey, Julian, have people stopped stealing his car? Has that been put to a halt finally?
I don't know if I'm the guy to ask about that, brother. I think just I follow updates from his wife just like everybody else. But other than that, I feel like he's settled into being that elder statesman on the Senators team, where they did everything they could to insulate that young core with young talents, with older talents who know what it takes to play in meaningful games. And Claude Giroux, I think, has filled that role and more.
So, Julian, Brady Tkachuk, if people I think wondered, like in his draft year, I had him ranked second in that draft, and people are like, why do you have him second? And I'm like, well, because he can go in there and kind of blow things up on the ice. So he's third in the league in penalty minutes, but yet he's still got like 29 goals, got like 26 assists. Like, he does everything for the Senators. And so going into the playoffs, how valuable is he? And is he going to just be on the ice most of the time?
Dude, like, people have been waiting for this with like Brady Tkachuk getting to play at Four Nations. That was his first time experiencing the opportunity of playing meaningful games. I know it was supposed to be an exhibition tournament going in, but like, those games, we all saw it. They were worth a damn for everybody. And he thrived in that. And he wants more of that opportunity. Him getting to play playoff games, whether it'll be in a Battle of Ontario scenario, whether it's Ottawa versus Florida, where he gets to play up against his brother, could be up against anybody. The fact that he's this big, strong player who has no problem barreling into anybody if he needs to, this power forward who will go into the dirty areas, will go in front of the net, and will get himself goals and get himself opportunities. And he's also the heartbeat of that team. Look, it's at a point now where they've had to play these last few games, the last 4, without Brady Tkachuk. And yeah, they got some big wins over Tampa and Florida and Columbus. Actually 5, I think, because he didn't play against Buffalo either. But like, some of those wins they picked up, those are some of the first wins they got without Brady Tkachuk in the lineup this year. That is a irreplaceable hole for this team when he's not available to play, because of the physicality, because of the goal scoring, that he's able to do because of the emotions he wears on his sleeve. And yeah, I get it. Like, some people get annoyed that, you know, if a game doesn't go his way, he's going to pick a fight with somebody by the end of the game. But I also think that when he's getting his guys into the fight, those guys respond to what he's able to bring down for this team. So you could make the argument he'll be the most important player for that Senators team. Tim Stützle, very much up for that. Jake Sanderson is having himself a really good year. But I think as Brady Tkachuk goes, so does this team.
And Julian, just to add on what you were saying, I mean, a lot of people enjoyed the Four Nations, but I have a feeling Florida, Boston, and to a lesser extent Ottawa, with the injuries that occurred in Vegas as well with Shea Theodore, maybe they're not going to enjoy that once they get to April 20th in the beginning of the first round, when they may not have these players at 100% for a tournament that was basically a money grab for the NHL and the NHL.
They made money.
I know, and the Olympics will be national pride, and I get that, but I'm just saying there is a priority here for the team that's paying you so many millions of dollars, and the fans. They I'm sure they root for Canada and for the U.S., but they also root for those teams. And if the injury status of some of these players gets affected, affects their chances of winning a Stanley Cup, then there has to be a balance there. But anyway,
I could understand that too. What I would say to that as well is, at least for the Ottawa Senators, these last few games, they've been able to rest Brady Tkachuk up with a different injury that wasn't suffered during the Four Nations. But yeah, we get it. Like, his hip was tweaked or something else, lower body was tweaked during that tournament. It is to the Senators' best interest to find time to rest Brady Tkachuk and put him in an opportunity where he could be as close to 100% as he could be entering the playoffs. But yeah, fine. While that tournament was a cash grab, so many people in Canada and the United States tapped into that tournament, particularly in markets and from people that we might not have expected to tap in to the sport. It was going head to head against the NBA All-Star Weekend, which people set aside time to watch, but it ended up being garbage. And all of a sudden, we're thinking, hey, maybe the NBA should start playing international competitions instead of a silly all-star competition. And on top of that, the Tkachuk brothers are at the forefront in promoting the game and opening people up to not just the sport, but personalities they should be getting behind. Like, even if Brady Tkachuk did not emerge from that tournament healthy, he still comes out a winner off the fact that he got to play some meaningful games. A second place finish, you'll try not to remember the second thing, but like the fact that he got to be on all these different podcasts, the fact that entering this playoff series, again, it might depend on the opponent, but he's going to get some exposure. He's going to become more of a star because people have been waiting on a player like him to play in these moments. Like Brady Tkachuk and Matthew Tkachuk by extension as well. They're two of the biggest winners out of that tournament just purely off of exposure.
Now, Julian, I was tracking the out-of-town scoreboard yesterday, sitting at a rather meaningless Carolina-Buffalo game, seeing Columbus beat the Senators and Florida beat the Leafs 3-1. Now Florida is 4 points up on the Senators, and you have a battle tonight between Toronto and Tampa Bay for first place. In the deep recesses of Travis Green and Steve Staios' mind, and maybe the hearts of some of the players, they want to play Toronto, don't they?
That's a good question. I think right now a lot of those guys, I'll say this, I think everyone in that organization, and I'll even add the president, Cyril Leader, who I kind of asked, but like not formally directly asked about the possibility about playing against the Leafs. They know if they get to play against the Leafs, they're going to be up for that matchup. Everyone in that market in Ottawa knows about the rivalry, the Battle of Ontario. In the past, it mostly went Toronto's way, but considering how the regular season went this year, there's a lot of fans who would feel very confident about entering a Battle of Ontario for as much as for whatever a regular season matchup would mean in the playoffs, but you get it. That being said,
it would mean Maple Leaf Square would be full for at least a couple of games.
It would mean Ridley Gregg is winding up for that slap shot. He's practicing up right now.
Everybody gets to make some. Everybody eats in those situations, right? But to finish the question, like I think a lot of those guys, considering the years that they didn't experience playoffs in any capacity, I think a lot of those guys are probably just happy that they're in the postseason, that they have that opportunity. And you bring up an interesting point with where the Sens are in the standings and the fact that they're 4 points behind the Florida Panthers. That's definitely something to look out for. I think their game on Friday is a massive one. They play the Montreal Canadiens, who won yesterday and are only 3 points behind them in the standings right now. They both played the same number of games.
Yeah,
Ottawa, they could win some games and it's all for naught, but there's a world they drop to that second wild card spot and they play Washington, which actually, funny enough, fans also feel confident about in that matchup, considering how Ottawa's played Washington all year. But I think at this point for this Sens team, the way that they've been playing the last few games where they've had to rely on some strong goaltending performances, again, they're not playing with Brady Tkachuk. I think a lot of those guys will probably just be happy getting in and then figuring out the rest for themselves.
Julian, last question for me. I mean, obviously, a lot of excitement in Ottawa, understandably so. It's been a long time since they've been in the playoffs. What is your biggest concern for the team going into the postseason?
I mean, health would be right up there for this team, considering what Brady Tkachuk has gone through. Linus Ullmark is playing really well so far, but he's a couple months out from recovering from a back injury. And if he's not 100%, this whole foundation could crumble for that Senators team. I would think the defense for me is also a big question mark. While I think Jake Sanderson has played really well alongside Artem Zub, I think that second pairing of Thomas Chabot and Nick Jensen, which started off the season really well, and there was some solid play coming from Nick Jensen. Jensen is not at 100%, and since then we've seen that pairing not be at 100%. That third pairing of Tyler Klevin and Nicholas Montemballo, we know Montemballo got to play games at the Four Nations after 18 games of NHL experience. That's still a very green pairing. Yeah. And then your extra defensemen are Dennis Gilbert, who is, I don't think he's played a game with the Sens as of yet. So maybe just one
game after the trade. Yeah.
But essentially, like, he would go in there pretty cold. And then you have Travis Hamonic, who at this point he should be a number 7, and has shown throughout this year that when you give him elevated minutes, whoever he's playing alongside, that pairing kind of sinks. Like, that's no shade to Travis Hamonic, who means a lot to some of those younger defensemen in that room, but I don't think that's a guy you're rushing to put in your lineup if you're the Ottawa Senators. So I would think the defense, for me, that's where I have the biggest amount of questions with this roster. And you could have questions all up and down the lineup if you want, but I think just health and their defensive play, specifically with their defense, that to me will be some of the biggest questions entering this postseason for them.
Well, Julian, thanks so much for coming on. Any closing remarks on the Vladdy Jr. Signing bonus of $325 million?
Just happy to see a Montreal native get paid, man.
There you go.
There it is.
Everybody should read him on The Athletic and listen to the CJ show. And also,
I'm looking forward to that third project as soon as you're ready to actually reveal it.
There you go. There you go. Thanks a lot, Julian. We'll catch you down the road.
Bye, guys.
Take care, bud.
All right. So let's talk Rangers Flyers tonight. I bring it up because, like, some Ranger fans are getting mad, and people from the outside too.
Getting pinned.
I know. No. Hold on. Now they're getting mad. Now they're getting mad at Peter Laviolette for scratching Gabe Perreault. I watched Gabe Perreault the other day. He's really not ready for the NHL. Right. So actually, when Peter Laviolette said it's probably better for him to talk to the coaches, get the extra work, this is an instance where that is true because he can't go down to Hartford. So this is the right thing to do right now.
It's the one window we have to teach.
Right.
A little bit. It's crash course.
Right. Right. And next year he'll be in Hartford. So that's the right thing to do with him. He's not quite there. He can't fight through checks. His timing's a little off. So these are things that I think should be looked at.
And I also think, conversely, right now with Demidov coming over to Montreal, I think everybody in Montreal absolutely has the right to be as excited as they can be with him coming over. I mean, it's almost probably on the level of Matvei Michkov when he got to Philadelphia.
Except for that guy that bought the 91 jersey because he's wearing 93.
and spend how and whatever the amount.
No, it wasn't. He didn't spend that much.
Yeah,
there were other things on that receipt.
Yeah, 91. That was Well, that's going to be
gave it a shot.
That'll be a collector something.
Yeah, they can get their money back the same place those people who
feel like that Gretzky Leafs jersey that somebody has.
Toronto Stamkos jerseys.
But the point stands again. There's going to you're getting them late in the season when you kind of have. Yeah, if you put them in potentially these guys in sheltered roles, maybe again, I think in Demidov's case that might give Montreal a little bit of extra pep if they making in terms of if they make the playoffs. But you have to keep I think in both circumstances, you have to be measured somewhat in your expectations of those players and in what the coaches. This isn't. They don't have a lot of time to kind of get everybody onboarded in these circumstances and to find the spots in the lineup where you shelter them while still hopefully getting something out of them as part of a playoff run.
But now Demidov is way ahead of Perreault as far as development, but you're right. Getting used to this.
It's still a jump. I mean, granted, you're playing in a pro league in this circumstance, so that does work. But at the same time, he missed time, whatever happened in Ska, the usual stories there.
Ska's doing a bloodletting now. I mean, it's
between that and Kuznetsov over there, and but again, I always feel like if you keep the you want to be pleasantly surprised by how well they adapt if they have success, and if they aren't successful immediately, keep it within reason.
Well, I mean, on Perreault, and Russ and I talked about this because he commented how Perreault looked sort of like a little bit of a fish out of water type of situation. I mean, this is the flaw, and it should be addressed in the new CBA, where these college players, the Frozen Four or the NCAA playoffs do not happen until after the trade deadline. So when these teams sign these players, either to burn the first year of ELC or, after the clear day roster has passed, they can't go to the American Hockey League. And I think it does them a disservice. Perreault should probably, now Hartford's not making the playoffs, but I think he would ingratiate himself better and acclimate himself better to the pro game, playing AHL games rather than being forced into an NHL game. With Demidov, at least he's playing in a pro league. At least he played with Ska, and I think he can slip it. Now,
he wasn't playing a lot of minutes.
That's the thing. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at there. So the question is, how much of that is where he's at developmentally, and how much of that is just the usual politics that happen over at Ska.
And that's the thing I'm concerned about, because the way the hubbub is going on right now in Montreal, they think they're getting Pavel Bure, and he's going to step in and go 5,000 miles an hour. And
now, mind you, we need to clip this when he has a ridiculous first round, and we all look foolish.
Well, if he wins the Conn Smythe, he can send me that $525K, which I think wink wink nudge nudge probably went to the Russian Federation. Oh, just kidding. But no, I mean, I hope the kid plays well. I'm just saying it's a lot of expectation based on everything that's gone on since this announcement happened, that he's just going to step right into the Canadiens' line. They're going into the playoffs. You don't have room on your roster in terms of 12 forwards to have a specialist to play power play. You play fourth line. I mean, every player has to essentially play a role.
You know what? They might have room for it because they were short in their lineup. They've been playing guys calling up all year.
What about Cole Caulfield when he first during the playoffs when they got to the final? I mean, I could see from that would be the counter argument from a Montreal Canadian fan perspective to say, hey, if you put him in a sheltered role, you play him a little bit on the power play, he could be a potential big time weapon for you in that respect.
Yeah. Now, Mike, I saw that John Tavares is the guy who got voted by the local media for the Masterton Trophy. And I think that's largely because he pays the most taxes of anybody on that team. And that you have to persevere through that. And I think he has. So let's talk about the Leafs' perseverance right now, this time of year when the games mean nothing and all you're waiting for is the playoffs.
Well, they mean something in terms of them finishing at the top of the Atlantic Division. And you have to factor in, like we were talking about with Julian, who do they want to play? Because they do have control of their fate. And, I don't think anybody in their right mind would come out and say, well, we want to play this team. And based
Nobody
on
says it, but will they rope-a-dope it like Florida is?
Well, people are saying, well, no, they're not. Sam Bennett's definitely hurt. Matthew Tkachuk is hurt. Sam Bennett. This is load management. He'll be. Yeah. They're already saying game 1 he's going to be in.
Of course he is.
Of course he is. Like everybody's going to be in. But that's the thing. It's like they set everybody against it. They lost the game against Detroit that they had no business losing because Detroit has played really badly the last few weeks, and they're out of it. But really, if you would be dumb, I just love the fact Paul Maurice came out and said, "Oh, we don't care who we play in the playoffs." But yeah, let me say, we're going to load manage so we don't play against that team in our state that has won a couple Stanley Cups over the last 5 years. We would rather play the team that has a core group of choke artists that hasn't won anything except one round against a tired Tampa team a few years ago. Toronto's got a lot to prove in this playoffs. Do you think that they want to face the Stanley Cup champions? I don't think so. I don't think they want to. Now, they've done well against Tampa. They beat them all 3 games. I think they want to play Ottawa. Not to say that Ottawa beat them 4 games in the regular season, but regular season and playoffs are 2 different things. And if you look at those 3 teams, Anthony, I
want to see him play Ottawa because I want to see Brady Tkachuk in Toronto.
Absolutely. Him, Ridley. I want all of it. That is exactly. If you're the NHL, that's what you want. You absolutely want that because the magnification of that series is.
You will go in there like a heel John Cena and work that whole series.
That's what you need. It'd be more like NWO Hulk Hogan, man.
Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
Exactly.
A black T-shirt.
That's the point. Yeah, it's NWO Hulk Hogan. That's what I mean.
Yeah. No, but I believe Florida does not want to play Tampa, and that's smart because Tampa, I think,
they know it's going to be a battle.
The NHL absolutely wants those 2. Yeah, they want Ottawa. They want Toronto, Ottawa, and they want Florida, Tampa.
Of course they do.
You want that because that's the blueprint. Yes. Behind this whole postseason, yes. When we get into the 1 versus 8 setup and how we prefer 1 versus 8 in the conference, the NHL will slap you with exhibit A and B of those 2 things right in front of you.
And I also think, and nobody will say this, I also think if you have the Battle of Florida and you have the Battle of Ontario, you're not going to have it's 2 Canadian teams against 2 U.S. teams. You get Florida versus Toronto, you're going to get some of these idiots in the crowd in Sunrise and some idiots in the crowd in Toronto booing the Canadian or American national anthem because they're playing an American team because of everything that's going on right now in the world. And I just don't, after what happened at the Four Nations, I don't want everything to go down that road, delay it as long as possible.
That's the thing. You're going to potentially have it anyway.
Probably.
you just don't want it in round 1, basically.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So we'll get to, I'm going to mention, we're going to say rest in peace to Ray Shero.
Really
that was nice guy, very approachable. I chatted with him many times.
So 62 is too young.
He will be missed. He will really be missed.
Yeah, this has been a bad week for first Ray Shero or first Greg Millen.
That was a shocker too.
And that was a really big shock because it was completely unforeseen and now Ray Shero. So, terrible.
And I do want to say, I wish the best of luck to Chaz Lucius because he really was a heck of a player, but he has a condition.
Yeah, the goalie scored in the bronze medal game.
Be okay. I
was talking about it with my wife last night in terms of she's like, that's it. There's no, when that happens, it's just not going to happen for you at that point. Yeah. So it's unfortunate. Oh. And we have Frozen Russ.
Russ looks like he's asleep.
There he is. He is.
You froze up there for a second, Russ.
If you said something, we didn't hear a word you said.
No, I didn't say anything. No, I didn't say anything. We'll finish on a medium note, and that is the Buffalo Sabres.
Mid.
They're basically at this point they're championing Optimus Rhyme, James Reimer, to be the goalie for now, for next year, and maybe forever. So, Mike, what's your opinion on that?
Forever. Yes, he has transformed the Buffalo Sabres. I'll just say, it's like I give the team credit in terms of they're playing some of their best hockey of the year. It's just ironic that it is at the very point where they had a 0.1% chance of making the playoffs. They've won 8 of 9. They've gone 13-2 at home. James Reimer's won 7 games in a row. The people who are the cynics in Buffalo would say, great, you just basically thrown away a season where you could get a top 5 draft pick, and now you're going to be drafting 9th or 10th. But the problem
here, 1% chance at the top pick, though, Mike.
Yeah, but the problem here is 2 years ago they did this and they missed the playoffs by a point. They went 9-2-1 in the last 12 games, and that summer, Kevin Adams did nothing. He brought everybody back: Tyson Jost, Kyle Poso, Zemgus Girgensons. All they did was add Connor Clifton and Eric Johnson to an existing team, and they thought that would get them over the top. And as we know, the end of one season and the beginning of another season are 2 completely different things. So if this spurt convinces them not to make the changes that they need to make this team better, then they're sadly mistaken. And I'm afraid, because I don't know whether Kevin Adams is going to be back as general manager. I think we know Lindy Ruff is going to be back for another year. Whether they're going to make any changes, or they're going to say, oh, we're on the right track, everything, we're building in the right direction. Yeah, okay, but there's a big gap between the middle of April and the beginning of October when the next season starts, and whether you forget what you did right. And I don't know whether they're going to remember it or forget it or what, but right now, I think that the worst thing that happened to them is ending the season on a positive note when this has overall been a negative season for the Buffalo Sabres.
One more bad thing that I see, maybe you guys will feel differently. I want to say that places are making way too many bizarre flavors for margaritas. All of a sudden, it's like, let's just get anything and throw it into a margarita. It's like the Oreos of drinks now. It's like they've got to stop. There's just like everybody's got to have this. Well, it's blah 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 Arita, and we're gonna serve that for a month because we're just out of options.
They started with martinis like that, because martinis were martinis. Then it's chocolate martini, banana martini. Now they're doing it margaritas. It's like a pickle margarita. It's like it's gross. It's like
just.
Can I do my Tommy Lee Jones impersonation?
Yeah.
I don't care.
Right. And we'll end on that. That's it for Off the Post. We'll catch everybody next time.
Take care, everybody.
I didn't kill my wife.